In the October 24th patch, Valve added 6 new heroes to Deadlock. You heard me right, 6 new heroes. So here's what they are and how they work. Now, you might have seen some of these heroes in a previous video of mine, but most of the heroes that we've seen before actually have seen several changes since back then, and they're a lot more refined. So let's dive right into it with this 6 hero spotlight, starting off with Calico. Calico is a support style mage who might be the answer to the flankers and the rats that we've been seeing so far. She can be played as a flashy assassin, but most of her abilities are designed around shutting down enemy tanks, providing information about the enemy team, and just being overall pretty cool. Her primary fire shoots a horizontal burst and secondary fire shoots a vertical burst. Calico's first ability launches a cat forward, which will pick up any enemy targets on the way and just drag him along with it. Activating the ability again will detonate the kitty and knock the enemies up into the air. Any nearby enemies will be knocked up as well as away from the kitty. Calico's second ability has a pretty short range, but it lets her leap to any nearby enemy targets such as a trooper or hero and slice them up with 2 individual attacks at the same amount of damage as 1 light melee attack. The enemy hit by pounce as well as any enemies nearby will receive a movement slow for a short duration. Calico can use her pounce again on another target a second time for the next few seconds after the first use. Calico's third ability is the real anti-flanker tool. Using the ability lets Calico place a kitty statue that tracks enemies within the area for a few minutes. These statues will also continually deal damage to any target if they are close enough to the statue when they take damage from Calico, meaning if they take damage before entering the statue's range, they won't take any damage. The statues will only stop dealing damage if the enemies leave range, get out of sight, or, well, if the statues are destroyed. The damage from the kitties will cause reduced healing on the enemy targets, while also healing Calico up at the same time. Calico's ultimate turns Calico invisible for a short amount of time. As with any ability, you will only go invisible for as long as you stay outside of the detection range, which you can see by looking at the red circle surrounding you. Shooting or using your abilities only reveals you temporarily, and then you go right back into your invisibility. Any damage you do during your ultimate has a slight amplification to it, and at the time of this video, that is 20%. And striking any enemies with any melee damage will apply a strong bullet resist reduction for the next few seconds. The effect also stacks, meaning you can hit them several times with a melee to apply even more bullet resist. Heavy attacks apply significantly more than light ones, and at tier 3, hitting an enemy with a heavy melee with your ultimate active will also silence them. But that was it for Calico. I'm really looking forward to playing her in ranked and in pubs, but moving on, we have Fathom, who looks like another bruiser style hero. Think Shiv, but on a little bit less steroids. Just like Shiv, his primary weapon is a shotgun, but with a much faster fire rate and no alternate fire mode. His first ability sprays water in a cone ahead of him. Enemies inside of the spray will take damage over time as long as you stay inside of it. In addition to that, as long as there is an enemy hero inside of the spray, Fathom will build bonus weapon damage about 8% per second, with the effect lasting for about 12 seconds afterwards. Fathom's second ability launches him in the direction where you're aiming, be it horizontally above you or beneath you, damaging any nearby enemies when you land, as well as knocking them up into the air. Fathom's third ability, Bloodletting, is one of the main reasons I compare him with Shiv because, well, it is ripped straight from Shiv's kit. The ability takes a portion of all incoming damage immediately, but then sets some of that damage off to be taken over time. The deferred damage is displayed as orange in your health bar. Activating the ability will clear your deferred damage and return some of the health. Keep in mind that you can still zero out on health and then die way after a fight is done if you are unlucky and you can't, get that health back. Fathom's ultimate, just like Shiv's, has 2 uses. The first one is the active. Activating his ultimate will throw a harpoon that latches onto a surface and pulls Fathom into it. After that, Fathom will turn both invisible and invulnerable for the entire duration of the harpoon. You can hang onto the wall for as long as you would like, in which case you manually cancel the ultimate to drop it down. It also gets cancelled if an enemy ends up looking directly at you. This can let you hide in the perfect spot to set up an ambush to dive into the back lane from whenever you see the best timing to do so. The second part of his ultimate is a passive one. For as long as Fathom is out of combat and not visible on the enemy minimap, he will heal a significant portion of his max health every second. At the highest tier, that is 5% max health regen every second. And my immediate thought is you can use this as a way to know whether you are visible on the minimap or not. I mean, if you are healing then obviously they can't see you on the minimap, and if you are healing, they can't. But I'm really interested to see how Fathom will play in Hero Lab, but we're gonna move on with my personal favorite, Holliday. Holliday is a damage carry with the highest per bullet damage in the game, and at the time of this video, that is 32 damage per bullet. And unlike any other hero, including Vindicta, her kit rewards high accuracy gaming and headshots like no other. Not only because of the high per bullet damage, but thanks to her passive, which we're gonna get to in a little bit. But Holliday's first ability lets her roll a barrel in the direction she is aiming. Shooting the barrel will instantly explode it, dealing damage to and knocking up on enemies that are caught in the blast. If the barrel touches an enemy, it will explode on its own. Punching the barrel after deploying it will launch it upwards and forward. The barrels can also roll off of bounce pads, both the ones you will find on the map, as well as the ones from her kit, which we'll cover in a little bit, which will launch them as well. Keep in mind that the barrel has a short arm time, meaning it won't blow up if activated on any targets that are right in front of you or if you shoot it right after placing it. That being said, at tier 3, the arm time is completely removed, and you can blow up anyone no matter how close they are. Holliday's second ability, Bounce Pad, places a jump pad on the ground that Holliday, her teammates, and even her enemies can take. Upon landing, Holliday stomps the ground, dealing damage to any nearby enemies. When taking her bounce pad, Holliday also has increased air control, which lets her maneuver it more easily. While the pad cannot be placed right underneath you, I found this tech where you could place a pad against a wall, which forces it to spawn underneath you, assuming you're standing right next to the wall, which makes you bounce up immediately. It's very niche, an interesting workaround, but if I'm gonna be honest, I don't think this will last very long, especially since I brought attention to it, but who knows. Moving on, we have her third ability, which is, again, one of my personal favorites. It makes headshots deal significantly more damage, as well as applying a fading movement slow. What's interesting is that this effect, unlike items such as the Headhunter or Headshot Booster, ignores damage fall off, meaning you can get these massive headshot pokes across any ranges. Now, while this is a lot of damage, it's gonna hit really hard, especially in the early to mid game. It is worth noting that you will only get this effect when the ability is off of cooldown, which at the moment is every 20 or so seconds. But it's also worth noting that once you've leveled your third ability to tier 3, any headshot that you make will knock 2 seconds off of the cooldown until the next effect hits, actively rewarding you for hitting consecutive headshots. As the more headshots you hit, the more frequent you will get to benefit from this massive chunk of damage. Holliday's ultimate lets her tie up one enemy hero and drag them along with her. The bound enemy is completely stunned, and Holliday receives a small movement slow for its entire duration. The first use of a bounce pad after activating her ultimate will refund 2 seconds of its duration, making it a perfect combination to yoink an enemy back into your team. It is also worth mentioning that while her ultimate only allows Holliday to yoink one enemy at first, she can yoink 2 enemies at the same time if they are within close proximity when she casts the ult once it reaches tier 3. I wouldn't be surprised if Holliday is the next hero to be added to the game, because even though she needs some tweaks balancing wise, I mean, she seems really overtuned and maybe even overpowered. All the animations seem finished, all her voice lines are done, and there are even voice lines from the enemy heroes as well as the announcer just ready to go. They were playing as I was recording this. I can't wait to play her, but goddamn if Jason's strong. Next up, we have Magician, a playmaker and a yoinker. I like to call these yoinkers because that's the easiest way to explain the class. As for his primary fire, this dapper gentleman fires cards at his enemies at the moment through Seven's weapon, but down the line he probably just throws cards at them. His first ability sends a magic bolt towards the crosshair. This slow-moving bolt will keep floating in the direction you sent it unless you activate the ability again, in which case it redirects towards your crosshair at a much higher velocity, meaning you can pull off a wanted move and bend it around curves and whatnot, much like Wraith's first ability. The bolt deals area of effect damage once it lands and applies a fading slow. At tier 3, the magic bolt can be redirected 2 times instead of just 1. Magician's second ability spawns a spectral assistant that mimics his attacks, throwing cards wherever you are throwing yours or shooting. While he can only mimic your primary fire at first, once you unlock tier 3, the spectral assistant will also send out a magic bolt when you do. Activating the spectral assistant ability after you've placed it swaps the place between you and your spectral assistant. The spectral assistant can only be placed where you can stand, so not midair. Magician's third ability brings the anti-cheat back in the hands of the players. Activating the ability lets you hex any nearby hero, turning them into a rabbit. I know this doesn't look like a rabbit, but bear with me. These rabbits are smaller and they move faster, but take additional damage. They are unable to shoot, use spells, or do most of their actions. And like I said, the hex can be cast on enemies, on friendlies, and even yourself. It is worth noting that hexing does not interrupt any ults or abilities. Also at tier 3, you not only hex your targets, but any nearby enemies as well. though at a decreased duration. Magician's ultimate is a rip-off of Paradox to the point where they literally call it the paradoxical swap. Using the ability sends a projectile forward, which once it hits an enemy, swaps the place between Magician and his target. During the swap, you gain 100% spirit lifesteal and the enemy takes damage over time. It is worth noting that unlike Paradox, Magician can just place a spectral assistant on the ground, yoink an enemy, and then teleport right back into safety. So why would even play Paradox? I don't know. Next up we have Viper. Viper is a damage carry who generally should be built around moving fast and sliding. Viper's primary fire is a high rate of fire weapon that fires a ton of slow moving pellets, probably the slowest in the game, with a very high recoil. Viper's first ability throws a boomerang like blade, which deals damage to any enemies that it comes in contact with. The boomerang then swings back around, dealing damage to any enemies that it touches again, as well as applying a slow. At tier 3, you throw 2 additional boomerangs in a cleave area of effect. Viper's secondary ability injects his target with a venom, and after a short period of time, it triggers and deals spirit damage. The amount of damage dealt is increased based on the enemy's missing health, meaning that it doesn't do much if they're full health, but if they're about to die, it's gonna hit really hard. Viper's third ability is a passive which gives you increased slide distance. It also allows you to slide up hills, and you can turn faster while sliding, leading to hilarious moments such as this. It also gives you 50% bullet evasion at tier 3, making sliding an integral part of his kit. Viper's ultimate lets you turn all units within an area into stone. This includes friendlies such as minions and heroes, and of course objectives such as statues or walkers, or even the mid-boss, though I couldn't test it so I could be wrong. The petrified targets cannot move or shoot or use any abilities. They can also not take any damage. That being said, if they take enough damage, then they will be knocked free from the curse and be able to start moving again. This means that you and your team could use your ultimate on, say, the entire enemy team, and then focus fire one of them to break them loose and then kill them. It's worth noting that any petrified targets will have their abilities cancelled. And then finally, we have Wrecker. Wrecker's primary fire shoots a laser pistol towards the target. His first ability creates a wrecking ball that after a short period of channeling can be launched towards a crosshair. Carrying the wrecking ball slows Wrecker down a little bit and slows you from being able to jump. Enemies hit by the wrecking ball will take damage and be slowed for a short period of time. Wrecker's second ability lets you select an enemy trooper or jungle creep, dealing damage to them over time as the consume goes on. If you secure a kill with this ability, then you receive a fire rate bonus for a considerable amount of time. Securing an NPC kill with your second ability will also restore the cooldown for your third ability, which shoots a blast forwards, which damages and slows any enemies that are hit. Wrecker's ultimate launches a flying shadow of yourself that you can control. Once it hits a target or you manually cancel it, then you teleport to wherever the ultimate ended. Teleporting leaves an explosion where you teleport to, which slows nearby enemies and deals increasing damage depending on how long you were midair for. If I'm gonna be honest, Wrecker doesn't seem that thought out if you compare him to the rest of the roster, and overall, not that strong. I don't really see where he fits in the game at the moment, so odds are there are going to be lots of changes to him as the Hero Lab continues, but if you want to stay in the know, you'll get to know all about that by hitting subscribe and subscribing to the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge shout outs to all of the Patreons who got to see the script for this video early, as well as the video completely ad-free. See you all next time. Peace out.